Sweeney. Dwayne Sweeney. Sweeney's over.
Can you please hand it over to your captain, Dwayne Sweeney?
Welcome to Real Tales with Sweens, proudly brought to you by Fin Chaser Boats. This episode I catch up with Aaron Cruden. Aaron Cruden is a professional rugby player, and his journey was birthed in the mighty Manawatu. He's gone on to play for teams such as the Hurricanes, the Chiefs, the All Blacks. He's had stints overseas at Montpellier in France and Suntory in Japan. And now, rugby has brought him back to the mighty Waikato, where he's had 2 seasons playing for us here with the mighty Mooloos. As you'll hear through this episode, Cruds has an outstanding view on professional sport, and his time in rugby has had some amazing experiences. From kicking that famous conversion to help the All Blacks secure their unbeaten season, to winning back-to-back titles with the Chiefs in 2012 and 2013, he also shares with us the importance of leadership and game management as a first 5, having to direct some of the world's best teams around the field. As always, the show notes will be available on the Real Tales with Sweens Instagram and Facebook pages, as well as the website realtaleswithsweens.com. The website will have all your links to listen on your favourite platform, as well as all the links to the sponsors and supporters of the podcast. Speaking of supporters of the podcast, Good George have a 15% discount available for all you listeners. Just use the code REALTALES before checking out of their online store. Lastly, I want to say a special thanks to Cruds for making your time available, mate, and man, was it worth the wait. So join me as we get to know Aaron Cruden. Enjoy the podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, I might as well crack into it.
Yeah,
anyway.
nice.
Yeah, so for those listeners, back again in the Raglan Roast studio. Weather's a bit better for us today though, eh, Cruds?
That's right,
Yeah.
bro. It's beautiful outside in the Tron.
Yeah. No, I was filling him in, obviously, on Jimmy's episode that you would have just, some of you might have just listened to, but yeah, it was belting down the rain, and but yeah, got a beautiful sunny day today here in Hamilton, and yeah, really excited about you coming on, Cruds, and yeah, it's been, I don't know, it's kind of a little bit of it's been a really cool moment for me, I guess, seeing your career and your journey, and then getting to work with you again. I guess, you know, I can't remember, was it 2017 maybe, was the last time we played together or involved with the Chiefs together, and seeing your journey sort of take you offshore, and yeah, then circling back, I never would have thought I would have ended up your coach, but yeah, and especially, you know, wearing a Mooloo jersey, so yeah, it's been really cool, and looking forward to exploring, you know, a bit of that career today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Sweens. I know you asked me a few years ago, and I was probably a bit shy on it, you know. I wasn't, huge on the podcast game and everything, but it's been cool, bro, as you're saying, obviously weaving in and out and getting to cross paths in a few different environments, and yeah, more recently you've been my coach, bro, and doing a hell of a job in that environment, which was wicked, but excited to be here today, bro, and chew the fat with you.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, because social media has never really been your thing, eh? Like, you've always been a pretty sort of private person in terms of that aspect of it. Was that kind of part of why originally when I asked you to come on the podcast, there was a little bit of, I wouldn't say hesitancy, but there was a little bit of busy schedule as well, obviously, too.
Yeah, it's been interesting, social media. Even talking to some of the younger boys now, they always hit me up why I don't have it, and sort of ask, or they pretty much say, like, I possibly could have lost out on, I don't know, picking up endorsements or however social media works, bro. You know, I don't really know how it works, as you can see. But I think a few years back, I jumped on Instagram for, I think, about a week it was, and yeah, just didn't really vibe with it or click with it straight away. So it's not anything that really has been big in my profile, and but that's cool. I understand, obviously, the platform it is now, and it's obviously in everyday life, but yeah, for me, it wasn't, and that's just sort of how it's been. And then probably when you asked me a while back I didn't even really fully understand what podcasts were and everything, you know. So yeah, there was a little bit of hesitancy there, but listening to a few different sport podcasts over the last little while has been pretty cool, and pretty much like we were talking just before we came on air here now, like it's just a cool way to get to know people on a bit of a different level, whether that's they're a professional sports person or a businessman or whatever they might be, and you get a bit more of an insight as to the person rather than the athlete in a way.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of my listeners will resonate with that. Like I talk about that a lot in terms of being able to connect people to, you know, I use it in the same format with different companies or brands that I work with, and around the stuff I do with the fishing side of things, and it's about connecting the consumer or the customer to the person versus just, you know, the idea of a fishing rod or a boat, and you work together in a community style of upbringing, and for me using this podcast has been a good form for me to, I guess, expand that a little bit and maybe connect a few people back to, you know, the way that things used to be for them when they grew up.
Yeah, 100%. That's cool. And similar to myself in a way, you know, growing up in Palmerston North down in the Manawatu, you know, like everyone knew everyone pretty much. My mum and got a lot of family still down there at the moment. But yeah, that's sort of what it's all about. And I know life in the world has changed a lot now, you know, it's pretty busy and everything. But yeah, the ability to stay connected, connect people, you know, it's all part of it. And I suppose through my rugby career in a way, I've had little bits and pieces of it. And even actually just this morning in the supermarket, there was an old guy that came up and just said hello and started talking rugby and the All Blacks, and I suppose that's the type of connection, you know, that those little moments are the ones that are pretty cool, when it's all said and done.
Yeah, and I guess like looking at going back when Instagram came out and you're probably in the height of your powers, I guess, and around the, you would have been an All Black at the time, etc. It was kind of the cool thing to do, to have it. You're probably the cool kid now because you don't have it.
Yeah, it's one of those things like, obviously it was a bit of a fad, I suppose, or a bit of a trend that was coming through at the time. But even in that, like I feel like, I was very lucky and fortunate through rugby that there were other things going on, and whether it was other endorsements or things for the period of time that I was, in the All Blacks, and that was really cool. But I also found that alone, without social media in a way, like it kept you real busy, and I'm certainly one that likes to have a little bit of free time, or just the ability to pick and choose a little bit. So I suppose, in a way, who knows what would have come of social media potential opportunities, but then I would probably be busy as hell, even busier, and then you're sort of not getting a chance to, I guess, just go live and enjoy life and experience all the cool hobbies, that you enjoy doing on the outside of what was a pretty busy rugby schedule anyway.
Cool, because I do want to talk, obviously we'll talk a lot about footy through this, but I sort of like something that you mentioned there in terms of, being able to, I guess, balance things and stuff like that, and what I've noticed, especially from yourself, if we look at, the last sort of 18 months since coming back into New Zealand rugby and playing NPC with us here at Waikato, and then there's no doubt been so many opportunities that are presented to you just through form alone. There's some of the performances you had for us were, it was pretty awesome to sit in the coach's box and just watch you go to work and pull the strings. And I've always been a big fan of your game, and that'll be evident as we go through this podcast. But a lot of your decision making now is framed around that too, right? In terms of it's about, doing things that you want to do and doing things that are going to benefit your family, not just jumping at the next big or, perceived to be big opportunity.
Yeah, it's like, as you probably know too, bro, like there's that natural progression of life, and especially early on in your rugby career, I think you can probably get caught up in thinking, like I'm Aaron Cruden, the rugby player, but the more you're involved and the more you sort of go through, you realise that rugby's just an aspect of what you do. You know, it's just, at the end of the day, we're lucky enough to say that we played rugby for a living for a period of time. But yeah, certainly for me now, especially just having young kids and the family aspect coming along, like, yeah, a lot of it's shaped in and around that, you know, just being really present where possible to be able to pick the kids up or drop the kids off at school, all those little things, and not necessarily, just jumping at an opportunity because I suppose, you know, it presents itself. It's actually being able to sit down, reflect, I guess, see if it fits first, and then you make the decision based on that. So yeah, it's been a hell of a ride. Like, yeah, there's been a lot of ups and downs, and you know, the path isn't always a straight one, but yeah, it's certainly been pretty cool. And I'd like to think that sitting here now, I've been able to enjoy the ride as it's sort of come along.
Yeah. Well, we that's something we spoke about a lot in our environment this year, and I think Floss might have been the first one to mention it. But you talk about the path there, and it's not always a straight road. And he talked about the path into professional rugby and how they can be so different for so many different people. And you know, look at Josh Balm as an example this year. You know, one week he's laying lawns somewhere and has come through the whole academy system, never been given an opportunity, played a couple of years of Heartland rugby, maybe 3 for King Country, then all of a sudden the phone rings and he's goes on to start every single game for the rest of our season, including a semi-final against Wellington that we all but won. We're right in it with broken ribs, and he's out there, you know. And then I bumped into some guys at the Chiefs the other day, and even his name was mentioned in and around the replacement player pool. So you think about, like, you know, those different pathways that rugby can take, especially into the professional aspect. Like, it's pretty amazing the doors it can open, eh?
Yeah, for sure. And that's like, you love hearing stories like that, you know, like Barmy's one, and there's plenty of them out there because, it's often too easy to get caught up in, I think, hearing of a lot of these kids that are touted at a young age, and then even when they come on the scene, depending on how they go, like, everyone probably expects them to be the finished product straight away, you know, but it just doesn't work like that. You know, there's highs, there's lows, sometimes you're going left and right and whatever it might be, and everyone's story is different, you know. But yeah, there's certainly that aspect of everyone's journey starting differently or at a different time, but just, I guess, the appreciation you can have of being in the moment and enjoying it for however long it might last. And I know I'm fortunate to be in a position where I can say, you know, I've had a long professional career and it's been wicked, you know. So that's a pretty cool thing. Yeah,
but for me, I guess that long professional career you've had is, you know, the way I look at that, that's by design. Like, I look at the way that you operate week to week, and that's what I love about, I guess, the kind of space we've been able to create with NPC at the moment, where, and even myself coming back into New Zealand rugby, it was such a good transition point for me to come home and eventually, you know, hang the boots up professionally, because I find, you know, like, when you're in New Zealand, it's a small community in terms of the rugby community, and it's very well connected into society here, and there's so many doors that open off of it, but you can very quickly become irrelevant to at different times and stages of your career. And obviously going overseas, for me personally, I spent 6 years in Japan, and then coming back still where I was of an age that I could still and playing good enough rugby that I could perform at NPC level. It really tied me back into my roots and got me back connected into the community again, and formed some, you know, more strength to some of the relationships I'd already established before leaving. And it's just a great pathway, I guess, back into society here. And we're lucky that rugby kind of provides us that. But then also what I've seen from you this year in terms of the ability to share that wisdom and pass that knowledge down into that sort of next generation. Because of the overseas contracts, a lot of those relationships they're as strong as what they used to be, but it's really cool to see now some of the players coming back in the latter years versus, going offshore and then pulling up stumps away from home.
Yeah, bro, exactly. I think even when I look back to probably when I first started at NPC down in the Manawatu, and like there were only maybe a few of us come out of like first couple of years out of school and go into the NPC environment. Generally it was the older crew, and but when I look back at that was like extremely needed at that time. Like just to probably give a lot of the younger guys at the time that were coming through down in the Manawatu, I guess the guidance that we needed in a way, whereas in NPC now it's sort of switched a little bit. There's not a lot of the older statesmen within all the environments now, and that's what, for me, coming back these last 2 seasons with the Mooloos, and you sort of alluded to it earlier in the podcast, like I didn't ever necessarily think I'd play for the Mooloos, but I can sit here now and say I'm a proud Manawatu man, but I've like really enjoyed the last 2 seasons with the Waikato team, more so probably the fact that I know a lot of the coaching group. I played with pretty much all the coaching group, which has been wicked. But the boys here, the group that we've got, like they're really diligent, they're really keen and eager to learn, and they've just been asking awesome questions. And I suppose in a way for me, when we came back from Japan a couple of years ago, I was a little bit unsure, like if I was going to keep playing or what I was going to do. And then obviously the opportunity to play for Waikato came up, and I was like, oh yeah, sure, why not? We were here in Hamilton, and this is where we're living, so it sort of worked out quite nicely family-wise and everything. And then I just loved it. I think I love competing. I don't think I'll ever lose that. I'll never lose the competitive drive to play. The trainings are getting a bit harder and harder as you get older, bro. I'm not going to lie there either. But like the group that's here, it just gave me, I suppose, another way to contribute and give back a little bit to the game of footy that like has given me and offered me so much as well. So that was probably a big driver, and even coming back this most recent season, Sweens, bro, is just the ability to build a little bit on, I suppose, the season that we had last year. And we went slightly better, but we're still obviously disappointed. We lost in the semis, but looking at it as a whole, like for me, it's been pretty wicked to come back into that NPC environment, because I suppose in a way, like there's club rugby and the grassroots, but NPC is like that's your sort of traditional rugby for all. You get around the regions and they love it. Like the likes of a Taranaki, Southland, Hawke's Bay, like a lot of those provincial unions, like rugby's so strong in those areas, and it's pretty cool to be able to jump back into that realm and have a bit of a jam, but also just pass on a little bit of knowledge, hopefully, to the younger crew coming through. Yeah.
Well, talking about that like competitive edge, and while we're talking, and you mentioned Taranaki there, but like that take us back to, I guess, that quarterfinal this year, in terms of, I just saw something a little bit different in us as a team that night. I think I saw a really big shift in our mindset across that week, and then the week following leading into Wellington, and we're, like in a team that was heavily hit by injury. But what did you, I guess from a playing point of view and being out there on the field, I've had so many people talk about that game, us versus Taranaki in that quarterfinal, and what was it like being out there in the heat of that competition, and how our boys handled that scenario?
Yeah, that was cool, man. That was a cool game to be a part of, and I think, like anything, I suppose, like, experience helps a little bit too, I've played in a few games where there's high-pressure environments, and sometimes you can get a little bit caught up on the outcome and sort of lean too far that way. But, man, I remember that game, the boys were just really well connected. We obviously, again, as I said, bro, I've been really impressed with your coaching ability, and obviously the coaching crew we had with Floss and Tomo and Mark as well. Like, I thought we we had a really good plan that week, but still you can have a good plan, but you still have to go out there and execute it, and I just reckon the way the boys prepared, everyone bought into what we were trying to do and what the game plan was for that week. And the boys just stayed really focused and just one moment to the next rather than probably getting bogged down with, oh shit, we're in a quarterfinal against the defending champions at their stadium. They'd obviously won the Shield the week before and it was pretty much stacked in their favour. So we just went down with that mindset to have a crack, execute our plan, throw a few punches, and then after the 80 minutes, just see where the cards sort of fall. But it was cool, man. As you said, you never get sick of that competitive drive and that, those games where it's tense and it's tight and it's like, oh shit, what's going to happen? But the elation after the ref blew the final whistle and we were obviously up, it was pretty wicked. Really cool to experience with a group, as you said, that was very different probably to the group that you thought at the start of the season. If we'd made the playoffs, would have been playing, a lot of injuries throughout the year and stuff. But I think it was just that next man up mentality. Let's just have a go, execute your role within the system and we'll have a jam.
Yeah, well, because I've noticed a big change this year in our group. Last year there was obviously, I've brought in a different way of playing the game that the boys have not necessarily had too much time with, if that's probably the easiest way to explain it. And then there was a little bit of, last year, a bit of back and forth and a bit of clashing heads in terms of asking slightly different questions of players in terms of being able to deliver on certain areas or aspects of the game when, they had been so, large number of our boys are in the Chiefs. They had a really successful year in 2023 and, lost the final to the Crusaders and had a really good, season in terms of performance that, once it became hard trying to do something different, there's that natural human nature to want to go back to what but then trying to obviously break that barrier down and be like, well, if we can add that to this, imagine the player that you're going to become. And I think this year, there just seemed right from day dot, there was a lot of belief in what we had established last year. And then it was like the trust was there straight away, where I felt like last year, first year as a coach, as you'd expect, I had to earn that trust. I had to, persevere through a few challenges around making sure that, I was really clear and committed on what the game plan that I was trying to execute, because it would have been easy once it got hard, if I didn't believe in it, to be like, oh, actually, we should change this. But through that perseverance, and then this year, I just felt like each week was just full of excitement about what we could do versus what could go wrong. Did you definitely notice that kind of mindset shift within the group?
Yeah, totally. And I think you can, if you know the game of rugby and you watch it, I suppose, when you break down, last season compared to this season, you can certainly see the boys, whether it was they were a bit more comfortable or they just were fully locked in and dialed into what the team was trying to achieve. You can see that based on the fact that each week the lineup wasn't always the same, but it didn't matter who was in what jersey. Obviously we had Ollie Mathis, a flanker, an exceptional talent as a flanker, and we put him on the wing because his skill set allowed that. But that's just one example. There are lots of them throughout the season where
Quinn played wing.
And did such a good job, and that was a lot of the fact that everyone understood what their role was. They were fully committed to what we were trying to do, and even I just think the messaging from you guys as coaches, I think the leaders, the players within the group, there was a real accountability on everyone to understand that and just try and push the wheel a little bit, because it's just human nature. As soon as things aren't going, especially in a rugby environment or any high performance environment, like you generally are based on wins and losses or your results, you know. So when you're not necessarily getting the results you all desire and want, it's easy to be like, oh, okay, let's just revert back to what we know. But yeah, I certainly think probably some of the ups and downs that and the teething problems that the crew had a little bit last year with some of the new systems and structures like that. Looking at it now, it set us up pretty well for this season, you know, to sort of springboard and sort of end up where we did. Which, again, when you're competitive as hell like we are, it's a shame that we fell one game short of the final. But yeah, again, I think there's real growth, you know. Any progression is good progression, and we certainly saw that this season.
Yeah, no, definitely. You spoke about it a little bit earlier, but in terms of what was your first year in Manawatu? Were they in the NPC then? Was it around that time when they first broke in? I know you would have been a little bit later.
A little bit later, bro. Yeah.
2006 was their first year, eh?
Yeah, and that was my last year of high school.
Yeah.
But it all sort of coincided roughly around the time that Dave Rennie took over as head coach down in the Manawatu, and he was really good. He got around all the local high schools, and yeah, we were pretty lucky. For a relatively small union, you know, like we had all the White Lock boys, Mitch and Nick Croswell, Aaron Smith, Kurt Baker, Andre Taylor, myself, and a few others. And Wrens just worked really hard within the school systems that were down there, predominantly Palmy boys and Fielding High School. Then it was, I think, around the 07, 08 is where a few of us sort of started to make our debut and sort of kick off in and around the Manawatu and the NPC scene. And yeah, as I said earlier, like there weren't a lot of schoolboys coming out at that time going straight in. There was a good sort of core group of guys that had been in that environment for a long time. But yeah, it was cool because Wrens obviously brought a different level of expectation and professionalism to the group as well. And yeah, like looking at it, I feel like from sort of 09 over the next few years, Manawatu started to compete a lot more, you know, and that was just based on probably, Wrens' vision a little bit, but just a lot of it around hard work, you know, like everything's gained off the back of hard work and can't really take any shortcuts if you want to achieve certain things. So yeah, that was a really cool time, like, and then from there things just sort of slowly started to probably take off for me because even at high school, like I loved rugby obviously, but I wasn't sure if it would necessarily be a career path. And I even remember my uncle, who had a lot to do with me probably early on in my rugby career. He used to coach our team. Like he rang me up one day, it might have been 6th or 7th form, and he's like, oh, this rugby agent wants to come and have a chat with you. And I was like, what the fuck's a rugby agent? You know, I was literally like that. Just, man, back then it was still, my last year of high school is when we started to take it a little bit more serious. It used to just be you train on a Tuesday and a Thursday after school and you play on a Saturday, you know? Yeah. Whereas, the school system now is very different. But, I remember thinking back at the time, like I love rugby and, I was always after school down at the park playing with my mates and, we used to name our footy teams based on the suburb that we lived in and we'd just go hard and there was like a real, we created a bit of a game through it all.
Nice.
Yeah, which was wicked. But I didn't necessarily think at that stage like rugby was going to be a career, and it probably wasn't until Wrens came along to some of our trainings and games and just sort of said, oh, look, if you put your head down and work hard, it could possibly be. And then, from there, sort of 07, 08, things sort of slowly started to happen and then the progression sort of moved on from there. And I think it was 2010 was my first year of Super Rugby with the Hurricanes down the way.
Yeah, because what I sort of found like through those sort of early years with Manawatu is like, man, they could play an exciting brand of footy, eh? Like, if you turned up on the day, and they still carry that to this day, to be fair, it's almost a part of, I don't know, whether it's the buckethead, like, fuck you mentality, but especially when the big boys roll into town, like, they seem to grow an arm and a leg, and I used to hate going down there, play at Palmy, it's always windy,
like the bucket heads down in that, as you come out the tunnel in that far right-hand corner. You know, you didn't want to drop the ball anywhere near any of them. You'd hear about it. But what I always kind of admired, and I guess it's kind of lends itself a little bit to what we're like here. I think Waikato are probably more known for being one of the bigger teams, but growing up we were always the little brother to Auckland. So through the 80s and 90s when I was a kid, you know, watching it was always like, you know, we'd see Waikato trying to compete against Auckland and Canterbury and all the All Blacks and that sort of stuff. And then there was a kind of a big shift through that period where the 90s Waikato team was really strong. But like I always have a bit of a soft spot for the Turbos for that reason. And I remember even Crosby used to joke about it all the time that, you know, once I went overseas, he always used to say, "No, my old man's favourite team's the Turbos now because you don't play for the Mooloos anymore." But yeah, like I think a part of it was, you know, I just love I think most people do in sport, love the underdog side of things. But what I did love is just the brand that the team could play and this kind of freedom and the expression that would come out, especially through those years when you and Aaron were coming through, you and Nuggy, you know, and you have Francesco Bosch at the back and Kurt Baker and Andre Taylor. Like, there's some real excitement in that back line.
It was cool, bro. And yeah, I think too is, as I said, it all sort of coincided with Renz's arrival. More so, I think, yeah, as you say, that when I watch the Manawatu team now, they've still got that in them, but it's probably a little bit less consistent now. Yeah. And I felt like Renz just probably brought a little bit more of that consistency. You know, he's generally got a pretty positive mindset in the way that he likes to play the game. So yeah. I remember when I first got in the academy and was training a little bit with the NPC squad, like it was just almost like an hour and a half to 2 hours initially of just skill work. You know, just skill work, repetition, all of that stuff. Because obviously if you want to play a certain brand of rugby or a high-skilled level of rugby, like you need to be able to do that consistently under pressure all the time, you know. And yeah, for me, I suppose as a first five, and I only transitioned into being a first 5 and 6 form at high school as well, yeah.
What was it before that?
I was a midfielder, so I was a 12-13, but I just stopped growing, bro, after fourth form. So, and then ended up getting squeezed in, and yeah, I suppose it was cool because my skill set sort of allowed me to do that a little bit. So, but yeah, those early years with Renz at Manawatu, like there was just so much skill work done, and I think that's why sort of a few years on, we were starting to probably reap a few of the benefits of that hard work put in. More so just in consistency and results, you know, we're a little bit more competitive. We weren't sort of hot 1 week and then down for 2 or 3, which was really cool. But yeah, it's just one of those things I'm always proud to obviously go back and help out, and even Manawatu reached out this year to see if I wanted to go down and play. And I mean, in a perfect world, it would have been cool to go back, but also like logistically and just the fit for the family, it didn't quite work. Our oldest, she's in school now, so it just made sense since we're living here in Hamilton to stay here. And obviously because I came in last year to the Waikato team as well, it made that transition into the team, or that fluency to come back in this year, you know, a little bit smoother. And it was quite nice not to have to play Manawatu this year as well, bro. We didn't sort of cross over and clash. So
I don't think we've played Manawatu for quite a long time.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah. But it was like, even thinking back about it quickly now, which is like something we don't always do as footy players, you know, reflecting on your career while you're in it, or, you know, but yeah, looking back, those years back in the Manawatu, like they were so cool, you know, like even when we were going through some lean times and would get spanked by 50 points or whatever, you know, like the environment and the crew that was there, bro, it was just wicked. Like there was no finger pointing or anything like that, you know. It was and I think for me as a young guy at that time, it was huge, you know, rather than I guess seeing any conflict at all. It was like, okay, well, we didn't get that right, but you know, we stick together, we stay tight, and then we just move on and try and sort of get better from that. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, well, as a young player too, you take a lot, you can form a lot of really good, guess like resilience, for a lack of a better word, or better term to use in this scenario, but through, going through a lot of adversity and maybe not being in the best team and things like that. Because I look at my personal career and obviously growing up here and even like Hamilton Boys High School, when I was there, we weren't strong. Like we were, we're always in the bottom end of the Super 8. Like, then I went into playing club rugby for Morrinsville and we'd lose by 60, 70, 80 points. And it's not that it became normal, but it became about, I think because of that, and I was aspiring to be good and to try and be a pro and that kind of stuff. Once I sort of got to that level where I'd had a taste of it, it became about a process. And it's like, well, how are we going to get out of this? Like, okay, this is going on. I can't control any of that, but what can I control? Like, and then it became about that kind of thing. And I think that steered me really well into my professional career, because whether things were going good or bad, I knew how to isolate what I needed to do versus like relying heavily on, I guess, a team's performance and my personal performance fluctuating with that. Whether the team went, I didn't need the team to go good for me to go good, but you're always ultimately trying to make the team better. But the other side of that too, I guess I kind of evened my curve of performance out, where I wasn't really good in riding the highs of a team going well, and then if the team was going shit, I'd plummet to that kind of level. I could just kind of try and stay consistent because I knew how to, I guess, focus in on what was important to me.
Yeah, I reckon like that's a huge one. And I think, sometimes you can, I suppose if things come a little too easy, then like eventually there's going to be a point where things become difficult, and it's always hard to know, how do you deal with that? Or, and I think as you like, from a playing sense, like we had ups and downs, I suppose, like most people do. But I suppose during those downs, like it does build a little bit of that resilience, but it also, I think, makes you appreciate and understand that, like you don't want to ride the highs too high. You also don't want to ride the lows too low, like, and as you're saying, it's finding that sweet spot for you as an individual player, but then also collectively as a team, where you can just stay pretty consistent. And like, ultimately that's what the best players and best teams can do, right? Is their best game might be a 9, their worst game might be a 7, compared to you've had players or teams that one week you could be a 10, the next you could be a 3. And you're just like, fuck, how is that variance happening? Like, we're doing all the same things and this and that, but just the ability to sort of stay in that sweet spot probably. And I'll be honest, like it took me a long part of my career to probably fully understand that. There were like periods where things were going well, and then like anyone, you have a bit of a slump in form, and then you sort of start to think, oh, do I need to change this, change that? And that's probably riding the lows too low, because you're sort of starting to overthink everything that you're doing. But and that's the cool thing, like it's just all a part of the journey, right? There's good, there's bad, but you just try and sort of split it through the middle, and eventually you're going to end up in a pretty sweet spot.
Try and navigate your way through.
Bro.
So what you mentioned it just before too about joining the Hurricanes. Obviously first up was Super Rugby, and we'll get to obviously your move here to the Chiefs, and obviously Renz would have been a big part of that when he come in and took the team. But what was it like going into that Hurricanes team at that time as a 10? And the listeners will understand this, or some will, but being a 10 is you got the keys to the car pretty much. You're in charge of driving the team around, and you roll into a backline with, I don't know, was it Piri Wepu, Manawatu, Conrad
Snakey,
Smith,
Conrad,
Julian Severe.
It was
Corey Jane would have been there too.
CJ was there. So like that was amazing. Like amazing in regards to the fact that I was playing with some of these guys that, and obviously growing up in the Manawatu, the Hurricanes were my team, Super Rugby team, and I was like, man, that is so cool. And then obviously it was 2010 I was first selected, in Super Rugby with the Canes, and that was unreal. But as you're saying, like, thinking back on it, like, you're still so young, like, compared to, and then you're, like, training alongside, you know, some of the guys that you just, like, watched on TV and could see what they were doing, and then, you're there as a 10, sort of having to tell them what to do, or, like, you know, making these calls, and it was, not going to lie, it was pretty intimidating to start with, and I think, the Hurricanes then had obviously had, like, roster-wise, such a strong squad for a number of years, but consistency and results had often been up and down. You know, like
the 10 and the 3.
Yeah.
Well, probably not a 3, but there was
there was just a lot of variance. You know, So, I was in a way probably still, as you are when you sort of first come in the first couple of years, just still trying to find your own feet a little bit as well. But certainly the boys were awesome. You know, like. Awesome guys. A lot of them were the ability for them to probably be at that professional level for however long they've been there. Like, I was able to just sit and observe and pick up a lot of good traits in regards to what they were doing. But I'm pretty sure my first season, again, we probably struggled for consistent results. So there was always, you know, a little bit of pressure in regards to that, and there was always a little bit of a squeeze because expectations were so high, but it probably just wasn't correlating to consistent results all the time. So for me it was a cool experience, but it was certainly different because I suppose before that the only other semi-professional environment I had been in was Manawatu, you know, and it was certainly different to that, you know.
Facilities and everything.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then even the fact that Grace and I, she was just obviously my partner at the time, my wife now, but like we moved to Wellington as well. So that first time we'd sort of lived in a different city, although it was only like just over an hour and a half up the road, so it's not a massive move. But you factor in all of those things, you know, and like it was
pretty formative time.
100%. But still cool, you know, like. Yeah, and as I say, like I am very competitive and I like to win, and so for me being a 10, and I started some games, but not all of them that year, obviously being my first year, but still as a 10 and I suppose a game driver of the group, I took that pretty hard, a lot of the of inconsistencies, you know.
Who were the other 10s there that first year?
Dan Kirkpatrick was there. Willie Ripier as well. So
Willie was still here then.
Yeah.
Because I went through the academy of Willie here. Why is he behind?
Yeah.
But he was here at Waikato.
So there were like. It was really formative, as you're saying, and some really cool experiences. Some were nice and smooth, and others were a bit rocky, you know. But
was there any good, like, really good, I guess, resources for you? And when I say resources, like support from some of the senior players, obviously coming in as a young 10 to sort of help, I guess, support you to be confident in directing the team around? Yeah,
it was good. Like, obviously, outside me, I had Pity inside at 9. Outside was Ma'a and Conrad. So, like, those 3 guys were awesome, you know, like, because they've been established All Blacks for how long? You know, up to that point. So for me, the sounding board was often around them. And just sort of gauging what they thought, and even in some, you know, like some basic things like my play calling and this and that. So that was really cool. And also I think it's quite nice sometimes to have, and this is what I sort of probably learnt throughout that experience, but to have a bit of a sounding board outside the environment as well. And obviously Renz was my coach at Manawatu at the time, so he was quite a good sounding board for me, who's someone who's not in the environment, but he could obviously be watching the games, and then he could just give feedback on what he was seeing in regards to not necessarily my personal game, but like game management, game control. Because I think that's a big one, you know, like as a young player, especially as a 10, where there's there's just a lot going on. You know, you got to worry about your own performance, but then collectively you got to understand how the team wants to play and this and that. And as for a young 21-year-old coming in, playing alongside, you know, all these established All Blacks and, you know, some of my rugby idols at the time, I was like, holy heck. So, yeah, there was a lot to digest, but, when you're in it, you just want to obviously absorb as much as you can and then just go out there and perform as best you can, you know?
Yeah, because I kind of look at that group of 10s you had there with Dan Kirkpatrick and Willie. That was probably quite rare in the sense at that point in time that there wasn't an old handing of the guard. So if you look at all the other teams across, you know, probably the existence of Super Rugby, there had always been an old bull passing down to the young buck. You look at Murdens to Carter, you know, David Hill to Stephen Donald, like all those sort of relationships. There was generally a 2 to 3 year kind of crossover period where that younger player could come in and kind of learn and adapt and evolve under somebody else. Where I remember the Hurricanes when Jimmy Gopeth left, that was quite young, you know. That was a bit of a because it was kind of David Holwell and then it was Jimmy. And then you kind of expected Jimmy to become the David Holwell to say an Aaron Cruden. Yeah. But then David Holwell retires, Jimmy leaves like pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And then there was like, I think about it, you know, upon reflection, probably more so than anything, and, you know, just flashing back and remembering, I was like, there was a very young, and I think even from a game plan point of view, that was highlighted in the way that we wanted to play as Chiefs against the Hurricanes, knowing that there's not a lot of experience at 10, like if we can disrupt the flow of the game, take them out of their calling system, or, you know, force them to make some changes in terms of the tactical side, that's where we felt like we could have got an edge, where when you play an experienced first five, that kind of is irrelevant. You're like, well, they're going to be smart enough to know, you know, how to move things, and you're ever getting pressure there, they'll just adapt to a 5-man play call instead of a full line out or something. So
yeah, it's a fair point you raised. Like, I probably haven't looked at it or broken it down like that, but it makes complete sense now the way you're saying that, because there was still those first couple of seasons at the Hurricanes, there was still a bit of a feeling out process of who the 10 was going to be, you know, like, because as you're saying, there wasn't an established 10 there for a couple of years. So, in a way, looking at it now too, maybe those 2 seasons I had at the Hurricanes, 2010, 2011, like, a lot of it was probably just learning on the hop a little bit, but those 2 years probably helped me when I came up here to the Chiefs, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know, because I'd gone through a lot of that feeling out process. I'd sort of, learned a lot on the hop and on the run, personally as a game driver, and the ability to call plays, etc. And then I do feel, you know, a couple of seasons later when I ended up here up in Hamilton, I probably was a little bit more comfortable within myself as a player, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because like I look at the modern game now, and we've spoken about this a lot together, me and you, but there's like players go overseas a lot younger now, so that kind of handing of the guard, especially in the game driver position on the field, is not. It's kind of the norm now, right? That you're getting these young 10s and quite often without an older head to correct and steer and help guide them into that position. So I know we've spoken about and explored the idea of game driver coaching and having a specialist coach that works with, you know, kind of like what Ren's was to you in terms of that external sounding board, but somebody that can, you know, either be connected to the team or separate to the team, to work with those young 10s to help them recognise momentum swings and what were you thinking in that moment, why did you call that play, did you recognise that this was happening, did you recognise that, you know, if there's a front rower that was yellow carded, a scrum would have, you know, made them take a loose forward off, all those types of things that we learned through experience, but hard to replicate without time. But then, as you know, we've spoken about, is there ways that you can fabricate time in terms of work we can do off field to help the decision making on the field.
Yeah, totally. I reckon there's massive scope and area for something like that. And that's often, it's just, in a way, it's probably what I tried to do a little bit organically the last few years with some of the boys at Waikato, you know. And it's just having those rugby conversations, you know. It's not always sitting down in a scheduled meeting and saying, okay, let's look at this, but it's just asking, in the moment on the field, you know, how did you feel the momentum was and what were you seeing on the field as to why you might have decided to do this or kick here, whatever it might be. But as you're saying, like I do feel like times have changed a little bit. I suppose when we were coming through, there were a lot of those experienced guys still there, so as younger players we probably could initially sit and get repetitions or watch what they were doing to then get another
those conversations
bank of,
you're talking about
a bank
too,
of learning. But that's the way that rugby has gone now, and guys probably understanding they're trying to maximise their time in the game, you know, like people are leaving New Zealand shores a little bit younger than what they used to be. And I do like what you said just before, like especially, and I suppose I'm a little biased because I play 10, but in a game driver position, often, especially when you look at some of the young boys coming through now, they just haven't had those repetitions, but yet they get an opportunity. And I think I alluded to it earlier in the podcast, like people expect, oh, well, he's starting for this team in the NPC, he should be the finished product, but you know, he's still only 19 or 20, you know, like, so it's like, but I guess in a way, physically now, boys coming out of high school into those professional environments, they're pretty physically developed, aren't they? Because the school systems, man, the rugby programs
got a big
are
training age,
massive training age,
physical training age.
Yeah, that's it. No, I love that. Yeah, physical training age, yes, they do, but in terms of like, rugby IQ and everything like that, they're still just quite short on reps, and you don't get that until you're a few years into your professional career, probably. You know. Yeah,
or even just more and more time on grass at any level, I think is beneficial.
Yeah.
In my mind, in terms of being able to see pitches, recognise pitches, like we're a product of our environment. So the more times you're out there under pressure and whatever level that is, but you're having to make decisions and make play calls, all that kind of stuff, and recognising momentum swings, that's just bank knowledge.
Yeah.
You know, and it might not necessarily be directly what it's going to be like from club rugby to super, but it's, you know, it's relative to the game. Yeah, where I feel like in the past, because the training age took longer to get, we got more reps on the rugby side, and that process of getting the training age through academy structures, you know, like you even spoke about it there, was it 21 first year in super?
Yeah.
So if you think about now, you know, like 21's probably quite old for somebody that would have come out with your promise, right?
Yeah.
So you had an outstanding, you know, age group career with the New Zealand 20s, and if you had done that, boom, you would have been straight, like you would have been in there in some sort of form, probably straight out of high school in an NDC training contract with a Super Rugby team, you know, like that would have all happened a lot quicker. But because you had all that time with Renz and you spoke about it, like 2 hours, you know, hour and a half, 2 hours of training just purely on skill to be able to execute a game a certain way, that's a whole lot of bank stuff that you never would have got if you're in a Super Rugby environment trying to learn a structured style of game plan, you know, to the level of detail that's needed to be delivered now.
Yeah.
So you're getting your rugby IQ after the physical, where we used to get the rugby IQ before we got our physical.
Yeah, totally. And I suppose, when I look at my own journey, I went from first 15, then got a good couple of years of just club rugby as well. Yeah. And that, that's just repetitions, you know. Club rugby, then into NPC, under 20s, Super Rugby, and then from there, you know, like up. But as you're saying, not everyone gets that now because I suppose whether it's teams or franchises are worried they might miss out on, you know, players, so they want to jump at them straight away now. But boys probably wouldn't go from first 15 play a hell of a lot of club necessarily either, and some would probably be selected in Super Rugby environments before NPC stuff as well. So yeah, when I just break that down into my own journey, like I'm probably really thankful I sort of went through each progression as I did, because it sort of just gave me, and at the time, you probably don't realise it, but you're just getting the repetitions that you need to build that IQ, and then the physical came after that.
Yeah, well, like a really good example of that is Taha, that plays for us, Kimura.
Yeah.
So I think when he went to 20s last year, the World Cup, I think before he'd gone, he'd played 5 or 6 games of rugby that calendar year, and like leading into, and he's expected to drive a team around at a World Cup and to know, recognise momentum swings, and you can train. And obviously he was with the Crusaders, so he was training full time and in that environment. But in terms of being able to just play footy and be out there, like he was so underprepared for what he needed to do.
Yeah, and that's tough for anyone, exactly. As you're saying, like there's training reps, but still nothing can quite replicate game-like reps or game reps. So yeah, I totally get that, man. Yeah.
But I guess the transition into the Chiefs, like, I was probably inevitable as soon as Ren's got the appointment, and you've spoken a lot about Ren's too, which I want to sort of segue into now as well with the move kind of up here. But how quick was he talking to you before he ended up getting the job? Was he like, I'm throwing my name in the ring here, would you come with me if I got it? Or
yeah, bro, it was a bit like that. So it was my second year of Super Rugby. It was 2011. It was actually the first year that Mark Hammett took over the Hurricanes.
Yeah.
So again, we were probably really inconsistent in our results, and things were a little bit probably tense. Just with a new coach coming in and expectation.
Yeah,
and
he made a lot of change too.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. And it would have been tough for him. And I think, especially considering there was still a lot of experienced Hurricanes boys at that time, and obviously as we spoke about a little bit earlier, just with the Waikato group, like sometimes change can be a little bit intimidating as well. But yeah, so Hammer came in and was just trying to establish himself, I think, a little bit as a head coach, and our results again were a bit inconsistent, and so Ren's rang me up halfway through the Super Rugby season and just said, Cruds, I'm gonna put my name in the hat for the Chiefs job and pretty confident I'll get it. And he's like, I'd love you to come up. And I was like, initially I was like, not really that keen. Like, obviously grew up supporting the Hurricanes and wanted to sort of see that out. And he was like, no worries at all. He's like, look, I don't need an answer now. I still haven't been appointed, so we'll see what happens over the next few weeks, and I'll give you a call back in a couple of weeks if it happens. And then just sat on it for a little while, and a few weeks later, I think our results had still been a bit up and down, and he called and he's like, mate, I've got the job. He's like, I really want you to come. And then sort of just gave a bit of a spiel, and, as I guess what he was hoping his image was going to be for the Chiefs when he came in, and this and that, and sat down and thought about it, and took me ages because I felt, I felt pretty bad. Obviously, more so just like anything, teammates and friends that you make down in the Hurricanes at the time, and then you sort of are thinking, but from a professional point of view, maybe it will be quite good. Like just a different change, a different environment, see how it goes. So decided to sort of make the trip up to the Tron, and man, sitting here now looking back at it, it's probably, although, it was hard to say goodbye to a lot of the mates I've made at the Hurricanes, but it was probably the best rugby decision I reckon I probably made in my career. More so the fact of just where my game consistently was able to elevate to over those sort of years, those first couple of years at the Chiefs, and that consistency probably I was looking for individually as a player to help the team collectively. Yeah,
well, I suppose that obviously that relationship and that trust you and Ren's have built over those formative years out of coming out of high school, or even, touching into while you're still at high school and going along to those trainings, like, clearly you could see, like, I guess for me, like, I left the Chiefs in 2011. So when you made the shift, I'd moved overseas. So I remember it might have been the time around the neck minute things came out.
Yeah.
The dude left my scooter outside the dairy, neck minute, then all those jokes went around, and then obviously I left, and then Chiefs signed Sonny Bill Williams, so that was a neck minute. Stupid, bit of a joke that sort of floated around, but yeah, I could kind of see, because I did speak to, I don't think I spoke to Renz directly, but I spoke to CT who did contracting, and a big large part of my decision, and people on here have heard it, was more around the fact of, like, I probably felt like I'd hit my ceiling within New Zealand, because I just played in the era of the two best midfielders of all time, and I felt like I was good enough that I could have played Test rugby if I'd ever been given the opportunity. I felt like I could have held my own out there and I would have been okay. I wasn't going to be a great All Black, but I could have held my own and not embarrassed myself. That was kind of the way I looked at it when given those opportunities I had with the Māoris against Ireland and England in terms of their test teams. I was like, oh, okay, I can foot it with these guys. I'm just not good enough here, which I was at peace with. And then it was sort of like, oh, well, let's go and experience something overseas. So I kind of made my decision before the change had kind of happened, and a big part of it was I wanted change.
Yeah.
I was like, I'd done the same thing for like 9 seasons. I'd driven into the stadium, sat in the same seat, had the same coach. I had Fozzie or Waikato. Then I had him at the Chiefs. So I needed something different to kind of spark, like you probably did leaving Wellington, like leaving the Hurricanes. It's a change, And then for me, it was that change was like, oh, well, I'll go overseas for 2 years, see what kind of happens, and whatever happens, if I like it, I can stay. If I don't, I'll come home. But yeah, sort of speaking with CT, and he spoke a lot about the direction of things and how it was all going to change, and I was like, oh, fuck, I've already made my decision, So not that it was just like, new coaching staff. They didn't even tell me who it was at that point in time when I was going through the negotiations. They just said that the new coaching staff is keen for you to stay. But, like, that hadn't become public yet.
Yeah.
So I guess I would have been committing and signing blind as well to who it was going to be. There was talk of obviously moving the base out to Ruakura, where it's based now. So again, another change that would have helped. So the way it all kind of lined up, it was like, I think I would have got what I wanted either way it went. If I'd stayed, I would have got a change. Would have got the change that I needed. But no, I don't regret my decision, and it was... But in terms of what I saw, you could really see in the way that you played the game, because I was a big fan of yours anyway. But then watching you come into the Chiefs and really kind of direct and drive that team around, and you could see the connection and trust with you and Renz.
Yeah.
Like that was evident in the way that the team played on field.
Yeah, and I certainly think... so it's funny, like, sometimes combinations just work, whatever they might be, and I do feel like the combination of Renz and a coach and the development of me as a player, like, that just sort of seemed to work, like, we sort of just seemed to probably look at rugby the same way and the way that it should be played and tactics and this and that, and that ultimately, to be fair, was probably... the big driving point and leaving the Hurricanes and coming up here to the Chiefs. And it was pretty cool because in a way it was personally a bit of a blank canvas as well, like anything, where it's a fresh start and something new. And that you alluded to it, but the whole, I think, system changed slightly. We got a new training base in 2012 for the Chiefs at Ruakura rather than the stadium, and a lot of the boys were sort of new into the environment as well. And it was funny just looking back at those 2012 and 13 years was just one of those instances where, again, a lot of the foundations was just built on hard work, but then the momentum and the wind started to come, and then the momentum just kept building and building, and it's in professional sport you can hear, like, losing can become a bit of a habit, but also winning can as well. And yeah, those couple of years when I reflect back on it, like it did, there were games that we won, we probably shouldn't have won, but because we had built up a little bit of resilience based on a lot of hard work and the momentum was there, we ended up pulling out victories that could have easily been losses. It became habitual in a way.
Yeah, well, because I was fortunate enough, obviously, to come back in 2014. Obviously the team had gone back-to-back in 12 and 13, and then I was at home, and then the injury crisis happened, and you might have been one of those injuries at a certain point in time.
Yeah,
you broke your hand.
A thumb. I broke a thumb
in
that
Africa?
year, and
because I didn't come to Africa. That's when I bloody was doing 3 yo-yos a week.
That's good yakka from you.
Yeah. But then I guess like sort of coming back into that environment, it really, I guess for me, like I had a lot of anxiety around it because
naturally
I'd been in Japan playing. My team was sort of in top division but real low end. First year I went, they were actually in second division, so like it was the level of footy I've been playing was the top league, and how it is League One now in Japan is the levels come up a lot from when I was there, and for various reasons. But when I was there, it was actually like it was a massive drop, big difference. Especially the first year when I was playing second division, like I scored 48 points on my own twice, because I was goal kicking as well. But it was like playing against like a second 15, and I was a Super Rugby player, like it was, the level was really, really low. So I guess coming back in and going, do I still have it?
Yeah.
I remember Mum tried to talk me out of it. When I'd finally done all that training, got myself fit enough with all my yo-yos a week, and then Reds and that were like, yep, sweet, we'll have you in. And they signed me for the rest of the season as an injury replacement might have been for Kid, for Robbie, because he had his hip injury. And then I remember it might have been before the very first game where I was on the bench, which was Crusaders, which ultimately Renz and that didn't put me on anyway, and it was me and Anton actually on the bench together. We were the two backs, so that was Anton's first year. He hadn't even played club rugby yet. He was in the Super Rugby.
That's what I mean. It does happen a lot like that.
So it was and that was unheard of then, But and I remember sitting on the bench there, and even before the game, like I said, Mum was like, I don't think you should do it. And I'm like, what? And then, because I was just in the mindset, like, sweet, I'm going to go play. Like, I was anxious. But when Mum said that, and she was like, you've built such a good reputation, like, I don't want you to tarnish it. And I was like, and my old man's, my old man's laughing, and he's like, nah, fuck, you'll be right. Just fucking back yourself. And then ultimately, I didn't even get on that night anyway. But then I think the next week we might have played the Brumbies over in Canberra, and got a bit of game time there, and then got an opportunity to start the following week, and ended up starting pretty much the rest of the season. But I guess coming back into that environment, there had been a really big kind of change and shift, even in the guys that I'd played with before me. There was just more of a hard edge to, I guess, expectation of each other. Like, we never lacked effort or work ethic or anything like that, and that was a bit that I got a little bit kind of frustrated with, is we were almost, because of the success the team had those 2 years, our teams prior kind of got tarnished with, you just weren't good enough, or you didn't care, or you didn't try, you didn't work hard. I was like, we worked hard, we just probably didn't have that hard-nosed edge to hold each other accountable. Like, I remember the way that, sort of coming in and listening to the way that you would deliver a message to the team, there was like, oh, fuck, okay, that's important. Like, I'm not going to fuck that up, But I never had that feeling prior to that. And that's nothing against, like, Beaver or, as the 10 that had gone before, or Hilly, or... Hilly was a little bit grumpier, but, Beav wasn't that sort of personality. And Fozzie wasn't, like, it wasn't really a direct reflection of, anything in particular, but it's just not the way that we were. And we played with this freedom, and it kind of lends me to what you're saying about Renz and all the skill work, because that's what Fozzie was like too. So I think a culmination of what Fozzie had done with those players that Renz inherited, with what he brought in terms of his mindset and the way he wanted to play the game. He had a team that was skillful
Yeah.
to be able to play the game because that's what we did. Like, and that's why we were like a 9 or a 3.
Yeah.
Because we had the skills to do it, but probably not the hard-nosed edge to be consistent.
Yeah.
It was just like, we'd just not recognise the opportunity or the pressure, and we'd go, fuck it, let the ball go all the time.
Yeah.
And that led to us, obviously, bombing games and getting out to big leads and getting run down because we didn't have that hard-nosed edge to be able to go, okay, there's a bit of a momentum shift here, like, how are we going to get out of this? And we didn't, we were just like, fuck it, let's just play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, those first couple of years with the Chiefs, even the coaching group, like, for some reason, as I said earlier, bro, combinations just work. But the coaching group that came in was awesome. Because it was Wrens, Smithy, Straws, Tom, Coventry, and the dynamic just sort of worked really well. But alluding to your point there, maybe where we had a little bit of that hard-nosed edge, it really came from the fact that the coaches were on us as a leadership group all the time.
Yeah.
And there'd be sometimes as a leadership group, we'd look at each other being like, what the fuck are these coaches on about? Like, what the hell? But, like, there was a little bit of method to their madness where they were, because what they were trying to instill in us was the fact that, like, as a leadership group, we need to have our finger on the pulse in regards to the playing group, like, so when shit hits the fan or things get tough out on the field, we're able, be able to deal with it, know exactly what needs to be said, what needs to be done, and then go and sort of put that into practice.
Yeah.
So that was, and again, for me, like, growing my aspect as a leader, like, that was wicked, man. Like, and that's why, even you said, like, sometimes the way that I would deliver messages, like, I know I could be probably quite frank and quite sharp with some things, but I would like to think too, like anything, like, if you're able to build up good credit as well, like, when you then have to withdraw a little bad credit by either pointing someone out or saying, fuck, boys, this isn't good enough, like, we can't just keep going through the motions, like, it's not, you're then not being looked at by the other boys being like, oh, this fucking idiot's always just fucking losing his marbles, so there is that balance and give and take. And I do remember, like, Smithy was always really good at this, and coming up through the age groups, I suppose as a 10, you always get driven in the leadership side of the game, like, well, you're the game driver, you're the leader. If you're not prepared to put your hand up and when, like, you need to be quite firm, if you're not prepared to do that, then fuck, you're not going to get anywhere. And I remember clearly getting that message a few times, and it's not necessarily my nature in a way, but I was like, fuck, but if it's going to benefit the team for me to do that, then it's just probably something I have to do, even if it's not naturally something I'm comfortable with. So there's all those dynamics to it all, but like, we were talking about game driver coaching in a way, but like leadership, I reckon, plays such an important role in high performance sport as well, and that balance of leadership. And I remember those when it was getting established in the first couple of seasons with the Chiefs, like, our coaching group was just, they were so hard on our leadership group to make sure that we knew, like, what needed to be done in certain aspects throughout the season or the course of a game, and be able to just pull trigger and do it.
Yeah. Well, if you look, like, you talk about the good credit and the bad credit there, if you look at the leadership group and the guys that have come through and that they're some of the best that have ever played the game, you know what I mean? Like, guys like Liam, Clarkey, who was there to start, great man, awesome captain, great leader, and would, just one of those guys that leads by his actions and by example, and no fluff, like, he's just real, goes about his business, and you could never, like, what I liked about Clarkey, because I got to play with him for a couple of years, was, like, what you saw is what you got, you know? Like, he would give you everything he had, and that was, and he didn't care if it was, he was the best player in the world or he was just someone that just did his job. Like, he just did whatever the team needed, like, he'd find a way to get it done. And then you look at Liam, he's become, he's iconic in that jersey. Like, you look at the career that he's had and the path he's kind of forged for, so many, to kind of to follow in, just through dedication, hard work, and effort.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at yourself, what you've done, then then you start going down into the younger guys, and then you start looking at Sam Kane, Brody Retallick.
Yeah.
Like, these guys are like phenomenal rugby players, but outstanding leaders too.
Yeah, it's the leadership qualities, I think, as you're saying, of all those people you've named that probably set them apart. And the cool thing was, within that group, everyone had a slightly different style of how they got it done and how to do it. But again, all those styles for us seem to work and merge really well. And you then, like anything, the more reps you get as a leadership group, you then start working off each other. So if Clarkey was trying to emphasise a point, you'd let him do his thing, and then maybe Hunger would come in and emphasise more around the effort. So the dynamics all shift and change, but like anything, it just seemed to work for us. And while it was disappointing, I suppose, it was wicked that we won 2012 and 2013, like amazing. But again, on reflection, now that, that's sort of 10 plus years removed, like, it was very much at that time, man, that was wicked, yep, boom, we celebrate, but we move on to the next.
Yeah.
Rather than sitting there all together and actually appreciating the fucking hard work that it took.
Yeah.
Because we didn't win another one after that.
Nah.
We were in the
Still
finals
haven't.
every single year.
Yeah.
From then, before I left initially to go to France in 2017, so 2012 through to 2017, we made the playoffs every year.
Yeah.
But we didn't win after that 2013 year, and just the effort that it takes from everyone involved is not to say that we took it for granted, but I just think you probably, upon reflection, you don't appreciate it in the moment at the time as much as probably what you should have.
Yeah. Well, I think it was you kind of look at that too, and it's even when I came in 2014, the team, my sense coming in, obviously being an outsider and seeing what had gone on, I was super excited about, I get to see behind the curtain, and I saw a number of shifts and the way the environment was, and I talked about that hard-nosed edge and stuff, and it was very different than what it had been. But what I noticed about that year was all consuming about winning 3.
Yeah.
That was all it was. All it was the end product. We're constantly chasing
the outcome rather than
the 3-peat.
Yeah.
It was I don't know if a team had ever done it or Crusaders had done it once or whatever it was, but it was just we're going there, and that's which is it's real awesome. It's awesome to have a goal.
Yeah.
And to push towards that, but I kind of felt like it was so consuming.
Yeah.
And to the point where my end of year one-on-one, my whole one-on-one was questions directed at me around, because I came into the team late, why do you think we didn't win? They didn't even give me any feedback.
Yeah.
So that, from obviously a coaching standpoint, they were desperate for that 3. They wanted the 3. And I was looking forward to I used to hate one-on-ones, back in the day at the end of the season, because I'm going to get told the same shit, need to do this, can't come back fat, all the rest of it. But that year, because I've been in Japan for 3 years, I was actually really looking forward to okay, what does this coaching group know of me, and what did they observe, and what did they see that I brought, and what could they think that I could improve? Because prior to that, with Super, it'd always been Fozzie. So I was this would be cool, different lens, see what they think, and then I didn't even get any. Yeah. It was all about, and I understand, that was what they wanted out of it, and that's fine. And but there was a lot of frustration in the fact that I had come from the outside, in terms of I wasn't a part of the new Chiefs, and I'd come from the tarnished previous ones.
Yeah.
That's how I was made to feel, whether that was what was how they wanted it portrayed, but that's how I felt.
Yeah.
That it was you've got old shit habits from the old Chiefs, you need to change those. Not as direct as that, but a lot of leading comments about that. And then I was but ultimately, I started every week and played, once I got in, and then played really well. And I don't think that necessarily lended itself too well to what I guess they, rather than looking at how awesome's our environment, that somebody can come in and feel that comfortable and then perform. It was more well, how can you do that? You didn't do all the work that these boys did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like that was how I was made to kind of
it
feel.
makes sense what you're saying there, and I think probably because in a way, as you've just said, like everything was shaped towards the victory of it.
Yeah.
Rather than this is our goal. We want to get a third title in a row, but I guess these are the processes and the way we go about things, and then you review those. But all we reviewed or looked at afterwards was, oh fuck, we didn't win. Why didn't we win?
Yeah.
You know, and it was it's I get totally what you're saying there.
Yeah. I know that we are getting close to short on time because you got to go pick Coop up from kindy, but I guess obviously there's so much of your journey like we haven't covered, but one part I did, obviously, like you've been an All Black, you've played at the highest level, and it's quite interesting, you know, the last couple of weeks obviously with the All Blacks playing Ireland. A few weeks ago they showed that, you know, there was heavily shown the highlight of you kicking the kick for the perfect season, and we've spoken about this as well, but like in that kind of moment, you know, I think all goal kickers live for a moment like that. Did you feel like when you got that ball you're like, this is exactly what I want?
Yeah, it was, bro. It was funny because even the whole lead up to that week, I wasn't actually meant to be there, so a few of us had played big minutes that season, and that was the last game of the tour, and the coaches had said, oh look, maybe a handful of you will go home early. But the week before, I think we played England and we picked up a few injuries, so they ended up having to be like, oh shit, well we can't send you home now, you're going to have to play. And so we ended up playing that game, which, man, was a hell of a game. They got out to a fly, you know, and we were like, shit, what is this? And then managed to claw our way back in, and then, when we scored that try in the, what was it, the 82nd minute or something, I think?
Just on that, like, what I watched it the other day again, because it came up, it might have been when you were talking to Cruddy, like when you two were sitting on the couch and you're talking about it, and I can't remember who I was sitting with, but I was just like, man, I love, like, the confidence and the freedom under all that pressure that you boys played with. Yeah. Like, the amount of passes that got pushed, that if you don't have full belief, those passes don't get let go. Yeah. There were so many in traffic, there's so many really late shifts at the line, all that kind of stuff, where that tells me that team was just in tune and they were just playing exactly what they saw and they just did it with confidence. Yeah. Like, it was so evident.
Yeah, it's so true, bro. Like, we, even looking back at it now, and a couple of weeks ago when I sat down with Crots and we got to relive it a little bit, we were just like a little bit in awe, I suppose, of just the belief and the connection of the team, like understanding, and I think we even alluded to it, there was in the five phases probably leading up to Crots actually scoring, I think the Franks boys might have hit almost every ruck, you know, like just that type of belief and ability to know where you need to be for your team, you know, like, and as you're saying, like, even the fact that it was the 82nd minute we were behind, so we knew we had to shift the ball and play, but like, you wouldn't always get the ability to play so openly, even if the score wasn't tight, even if you weren't behind by whatever, you know, like, but that was just, I think it was when Johnny missed the penalty, might have been with 5 minutes to go, because if he had got that, we were pretty much sunk, bro. We were dead, you know? Yeah. But as soon as that...
3 times, eh?
Yeah, there was something like that. It just would have pushed us out a little bit, probably too far. But, I guess unlucky for him, but good for us that it kept us in. And then from that moment, I don't know what it was, but there was just a feeling amongst the group that we felt like we could march down the field in that last passage of play, which we did, and, you know, score in the corner. And
well, even that try, right? Like, I think you passed the Colsey, eh? Yeah. Even like that scenario, if you look at that picture of when you got the ball, that's not even a chance, like a half chance. Yeah. But because of the confidence and the freedom to just see the instinct and see it, or, you know, see it back your instinct and the reaction speed of the attack versus the defense won the moment.
Yeah.
You know, just the fact that you saw like, oh, half chance, bang.
Get it across.
Let the pass go. Colsey sneaks his way through, gets an offload away, Crotts scores. Like,
yeah, it was pretty wicked, man. Like, and I'll talk about the kick in a minute, but I do remember once we got back to the changing room, we all sat down and we were still a little bit in disbelief, bro. We looked at each other and we were just like, holy fuck, like what actually just happened?
Yeah.
Which was pretty crazy. Like that doesn't happen often in footy at all. But then going back to that goal kick, like honestly, I was so confident with the first one because I'd kicked well during the day. Obviously my routine had been the same the whole time, and that's why when they charged early the first time, I don't really understand it, because my process back then was I used to take a few sort of steps before I stopped and then made my approach, but they sort of charged on the pre-steps,
which you did every single time,
every single game, every single kick, and before that one in that game. But and it's funny because normally if I miss a goal kick, I'll miss left. Like I've got what I call a bit of a hook. So when, as I said, the first kick, I was so confident, just went through my process, hit it really well, got through the kick, came up and had a look, and it was going straight down the middle.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is going over.
Yeah.
Keep watching a little bit more, and then it starts sort of drifting out or fading out to the right. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then it literally just misses right. And I'm like, man, I never miss like that. And then I think the footage is like, I think I put my hand on my head because I'm like, fuck, I've just fucked it up,
Yeah.
And then, all of a sudden the ref's like, oh, nah, like you'll get another shot. They charged early. And then, Hunger went and got the ball, came over. And obviously we had a good relationship from the Chiefs and everything. And he just said, oh, bro, you got this. Gave me the ball and walked off. Lined it up again. And I was like, okay, sweet. If that's how the ball's going to travel right now, then I'll just adjust like my start position slightly more left, start it more left. And then I was like, I'll just hit it the same. So, it was funny. Like I was so confident I was going to hit the first one.
Yeah.
But then obviously didn't. Got a second go. But I knew I was going to get that second one.
Yeah.
So then just adjusted the start point of my ball slightly left, and then it actually flew exactly the same as well.
Yeah.
Which is, as I said, it's strange for me. Normally I would miss left.
Yeah.
But for some reason that day it was slightly going to the right. So I was like, okay, I'll just adjust my start point, aimed slightly more to the left-hand post, and then it just sort of came back straight through the middle, and it was happy days. But I've had heaps of Irish people come up to me since then, bro.
He broke their
heart,
Because they had never beaten the All Blacks
not at that
home,
time,
Had they won in Chicago?
No, that was before.
Oh, that was before Chicago.
That was before Chicago, bro. So that was that was just one of those moments that pretty cool for us and cool to experience that for me. But for my poor old Irish friends, bro, they weren't too happy.
Well, that team at that period of time, in terms of the way that the style of game that the All Blacks were playing, especially in the last 20 minutes, it was phenomenal. Like teams would just have to empty their tank in the first 60 to try and do something, and the Irish were probably a good example of that in that game. Got out to an absolute flyer, played with unbelievable intensity and accuracy. But even as a fan, like watching back then, it was just like, nah, not enough. Like the All Blacks will get this, you know. And then a few things kind of happening, like, oh, maybe they won't today.
Yeah.
But then you see that last passage of play, and it there's just I even remember it took me back to watching it live. Well, upon reflection, when I was looking at it, I was like, I just kind of knew that they're going to win, just because of the confidence and freedom that the players seem to be able to play with under immense fatigue. I think, pretty much all rugby fans around the world will recognise how good that team was for such a long period of time there, where, especially in the last 20 minutes, they'd literally just take the game away from people.
Yeah. And it's funny, I reckon that's probably the time, roughly maybe, I could be mistaken, but I was going to say where rugby really became like a 23-man game, you know, like, because in that period of the All Blacks dominance, it was like the bench would come on and just sort of take things to another level in that last 20 minutes.
Amazing depth too, eh?
Yeah,
like,
huge.
Really good squads.
Yeah, massive squads, and whoever got the opportunity would often, you know, they'd excel and play really well. But probably, you know, before that, and even when I talked to my uncle who played in a different generation, he was saying, like, if you started, it would just be like you were very lucky if you're on the reserves bench to get on, you know. But now in the modern game, probably just with the pace of the game and the skill level, the physicality, like, it is such, to have a strong bench, like, that can pretty much set you apart. And in a way, I suppose, like, you look at where the Springboks are at currently too, you know, like, that's a bit of a weapon for them right now, isn't it? And maybe looking back at it, that period of All Blacks rugby might have been a bit of a catalyst for all of that, which is, pretty fun.
Yeah. This last one to sort of finish off with, we'll stay on the All Black, but 2011, when you get called into the World Cup, did you have any inkling that could be a possibility? Like, were you training in preparation for, like, okay, if something happens, you're in, or?
Not really. Like, to be fair,
the rumour has it you're skateboarding the week before, weren't you?
Well, the NPC hadn't finished that much before the World Cup, you know, so I still felt like I was in relatively good shape. But that year we had pre-World Cup camps, and I went along to those, and I felt like I trained pretty well, you know, like, but the coaches decided to go with Desi, with Dan, and then Slady as the backup.
Yeah.
They only took 2, and then they just said to me, "Oh, look, obviously if anything happens, then you'll be in consideration." But I hadn't heard anything from then onwards, you know. So before the lead up, and we actually had a pretty good NPC year from memory with Manawatu that year, so that was pretty fun to obviously just get to keep playing that level of rugby. And then it was, I remember there was actually a game in Palmerston North. I think Argentina were playing in a pool game, and I got a call. We were going along just to watch and get amongst the atmosphere, and then I got a call from Darren Shan, the All Blacks manager, that day, and he sort of said to me, "Oh shit, Aaron, you're going to be coming into camp tomorrow. Dan's injured." And I was like, "Fuck, now, like, this is what?" And he's like, "Yep, like, Dan's out for the World Cup. You're coming in." And I remember I went along to the Argentinian game in Palmy, but I
drank a few less beers than
I didn't even drink anything, bro. I was like, I don't even know what happened in that game, because I was like, holy fuck, I'm really going into the AB's camp tomorrow. So jumped on the plane, went up to Auckland, and then from there, oh man, it's such a cool time again to reflect on in my career, because when I missed out initially on the squad, I didn't think I'd probably play a part at all, you know. But then the way things worked out, I actually got to play all of the big games. You know, I came in for the quarterfinal, semi-final, and final. So, and it was probably because I had initially missed out. It's funny to say this, but I went in probably with not so much pressure on myself, you know, because I'd been called in.
Yeah.
But even though I'd been called in and I was playing because there were injuries and I was just next man up, but I still just tried to, even I was only 22 at the time, so still really young, but I was just like, man, I'm not even meant to be here, so don't get bogged down with expectation. Just play, you know?
Yeah.
And I do truly think probably having a full NPC season and like playing well, enjoying my rugby helped lead into those crunch games for the Rugby World Cup.
Yeah.
But I just remember, bro, the vibe in the country at that time like was awesome, man. You know, electric, electric, like something probably haven't experienced in a way, like, and probably some of the fondest memories. Obviously, the rugby was wicked, and you know, winning a World Cup on home soil was incredible. But some of the bus trips we took to the games, bro, and the amount of fans in All Blacks jerseys and supporters just lining the streets, it's just something I'll never forget. You know, like, been a lot of cool memories on the field that I'll never forget throughout my career, but that one, like, thinking about it, like, even at our hotel, they were just all in the car parks across the road, and, like, there was just such a buzz, bro, and it was pretty cool to, be a part of, uniting the nation like that during that period, which is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was it? The semi-final, the drop goal?
Yeah, against Aussie, bro. Yeah. Which is funny, like, because I don't practice it a hell of a lot, but I remember, bro, like, my grandfather, rest in peace, granddad, but he was always on me, bro.
Yeah.
Practice your drop kicks. Never know when you're gonna need it. Practice your drop kicks, and I was always like, whatever, granddad. Like, come on, bro.
I'll just score.
We score tries or try assists. I didn't score many tries, bro. But I was like, try assist. I'm gonna try assist. And then I don't know why in that moment, but I was like, oh yeah. Probably we were like attacking, but we weren't really going anywhere. So I was like, I'll just drop back in the pocket and have a crack. And bro, I honestly hit it as sweet as ever. Like, cause like some of my drop kicks I do after captain's run, I shank left and right, and they go everywhere. But this one just came off the foot, sweet as, and travelled like 40 odd meters. I was like, oh shit,
long way.
Yeah, long way. So I was stoked. But that was just one of those, like, looking back, and just to have a positive impact like that in a World Cup, like, it was pretty cool, bro. Pretty cool.
It was really cool. Like, I guess the reason I brought that up too is because at that point in time, the All Blacks never took drop goals, Like, it wasn't a thing, and it was probably, it might have come out of the 2007 World Cup, how, like, the All Blacks don't, they don't accumulate points, if they don't score tries, they're not building a score and all that kind of stuff, so I just sort of wondered whether it was a bit of a mentality going in, or you just sort of saw the opportunity and went, I could hit that.
Yeah, it was probably more that, bro. Like, we didn't really speak about it. Obviously, if it came to the crunch, like, we practiced the scenario where we had a plan, but that was a little bit more like just getting a feel for, we're in this attacking set, but we're not really going anywhere. So I just remember, like, there was a midfield ruck, and I think initially Pity was probably going to play a forward pod to the right, and then I just overcalled him and sort of used them roughly as a few blockers, a bit of blockage, and then just had a nudge and sailed through, bro, and I was like happy as running back to receive the kickoff. I was like, that was pretty good.
Was the atmosphere like at those, obviously with the quarter semi and final, like Eden Park, was it just like nothing you've ever experienced? Like, obviously you get some big atmospheres around the world, but it's different when it's for you.
Totally. And it's just like, I reckon some of the coolest atmospheres I've experienced would be, over in Europe or a sold out Ellis Park. Those are cool. But in terms of in New Zealand, and because they had put extra seating in at Eden Park for the World Cup, so that was like, I could be wrong, maybe people listening, the stats people, but I feel like it was close to 80,000 at that time in 2011 at the World Cup, and that was just
because all the seating coming all along the side.
Along the side, and that was like just absolutely humming. And as you said, because majority of fans were wearing black, so it's for you compared to when you play at Ellis Park in South Africa or Aviva Stadium in Dublin. Generally it's for them. Like, they're the home team, so. Those were, and that's probably where I relate to, like, some of the bus trips to the stadiums at that time. Just the amount of support, like, people in their All Blacks jerseys and black was awesome, bro. Because
I think through my career, like, you often see that, but it's never for you. Like, I remember going to Loftus for the final against the Bulls in 2009, and then driving through Pretoria, and it was just like thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people lining the streets, all in their Bulls jerseys the whole way to the ground on like a 15-20 minute bus drive. It was like phenomenal, but not that's clearly the opposition, and they're all pulling the fingers and throwing shit at the bus, but again, awesome, hostile, and I actually enjoyed it.
It's amazing to play regardless in an environment like that, you know. But when you get that shape the other way, where the environment is more so cheering and supporting for you, you're just like, I reckon it could just, especially just gives you an extra bit of a buzz, bro.
That's cool. Well, I understand that you're got to pick the little man coop up, Cruds, but thank you so much for your time. It's definitely been worth the wait. And actually really cool to, obviously, we've connected in a different form now as well. Obviously, when originally we come on, it was, player to player. Now it's player to player, player to coach.
Mate to mate, bro.
Yeah, mate to mate. But yeah, from my point of view, I just also want to say thanks heaps for the work that you've done with our team in the last 2 years, and for myself as a new coach, it's been super helpful to have, I guess, someone of your caliber to be able to bounce ideas off and give myself confidence that I am thinking about things in the right way and wanting to take the game or the team in the direction that I want to take it, and having your support to be able to do that has been fucking awesome.
It's been wicked, bro. Thanks goes to you, to be fair, for just providing me with another opportunity to lace the boots up and have another run, bro. That's been wicked as, and even for this today, first real podcast, bro. Thanks for being gentle on me and giving me a good entry level. And if the listeners like hearing me talk a little bit of shit, maybe we'll have to do another one down the road, bro.
Yeah, you might have to tell some of those Dave Rennie stories.
Big Rens. Yeah.
Sweet. Cheers, Cruds.
Cheers, brother.